You might think that earning $70,000 a year in the US would feel comfortable, maybe even a little wealthy. After all, it's well above the national median income, and on paper, it should allow you to live a decent life, maybe even save a little. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to make ends meet, or feeling trapped in an endless cycle of bills and expenses, you know the truth. $70,000 can feel like poverty. And today, we're going to dig into why that is, what's really happening behind the numbers, and why the American dream seems just out of reach for so many people. Let's start with the most obvious factor: cost of living. $70,000 a year might sound like a lot, but where you live changes everything. In some parts of the country, $70,000 is enough to cover rent, groceries, and maybe a little entertainment without stress. But in big cities, places like New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston, the cost of living skyrockets. Rent alone can gobble up half of that $70,000 before you even think about groceries, transportation, or healthcare. Imagine making $5,800 a month before taxes, and then handing over $2,500 to $3,500 for a modest one-bedroom apartment. Suddenly, the idea of living comfortably feels like a cruel joke. And it's not just rent. Everything from gas prices, utilities, insurance, to even the cost of a simple cup of coffee adds up faster than most people anticipate. Now, let's talk taxes. Many people forget how much money disappears before it even hits your bank account. Federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, Medicare. Suddenly that $70,000 shrinks significantly. Depending on where you live, you might be left with closer to $50,000, $55,000 after all deductions. And that's before you consider other mandatory expenses like retirement contributions, health insurance premiums, or union dues. Taxes alone can make a salary that seems comfortable on paper feel painfully tight in reality. And speaking of health insurance, here's another silent killer of financial peace: medical expenses. Even if you're careful, even if you have insurance through your job, the US system can make a simple trip to the emergency room cost thousands. Prescription costs, deductibles, co-pays. It's easy to see how a health emergency can wipe out months of savings. And if you're self-employed or your job doesn't offer comprehensive coverage, $70,000 can suddenly feel like it's barely covering essentials. Then there's student loan debt. Millions of Americans carry tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, in student loans. If you're paying $500 to $1,000 a month on loans, that $70,000 annual salary suddenly shrinks even further. What seemed like disposable income is eaten alive by obligations from your past education. And this isn't just a number, it's real stress, real anxiety, and real decisions being made every month about whether to eat out, pay a bill, or skip entertainment. Food is another place where people feel the squeeze. Groceries have gotten more expensive in recent years, and if you're feeding a family, the bills can be staggering. Even budgeting carefully, $70,000 doesn't stretch as far as you might hope. And if you're trying to make healthier choices, buying fresh produce, lean meats, or organic products, the costs rise even higher. Suddenly, the freedom to choose your lifestyle, the freedom we all imagine when we hear $70,000 salary, feels like it's slipping away. Transportation is another hidden trap. Owning a car in the US isn't just about the price of the vehicle. It's gas, insurance, maintenance, parking, and sometimes tolls. Public transportation isn't always an option either, depending on where you live. For someone making $70,000, these costs can take a surprisingly large chunk of their monthly income, especially in cities where commuting is long or gas prices spike. And let's not forget emergency savings or the lack thereof. A sudden car repair, a medical bill, or a broken appliance can instantly create a financial crisis. Without a safety net, every month feels like a tightrope walk. $70K sounds fine in theory, but without savings, one unexpected event can push someone into real hardship. And that's the reality for so many people earning this seemingly comfortable salary. They're constantly on edge, knowing that a single mistake, one bad week, or one unexpected expense could spiral them into debt. It's also about lifestyle inflation. When people earn a little more, it's natural to want a better apartment, a newer car, or to eat out more often. But in high-cost areas, trying to maintain even a modest middle-class lifestyle eats up almost every dollar. So, while $70,000 sounds like a middle-class dream, in reality, it often just covers the essentials with very little room for leisure, travel, or true financial growth. And here's a critical point most people don't consider: the psychological aspect. Feeling like you're living paycheck to paycheck, even with a decent salary, is stressful. It affects mental health, relationships, and your ability to plan for the future. People earning $70,000 may constantly compare themselves to others who seem to have more, fueling feelings of inadequacy or failure. The truth is, numbers on a paycheck don't always translate to freedom, happiness, or security, and that gap between expectation and reality hits hard. Housing, taxes, healthcare, student loans, groceries, transportation, and lifestyle expectations, they all combine into a perfect storm that makes $70,000 feel insufficient. And if you're supporting a family, trying to save for college, or planning for retirement, the pressure multiplies. Suddenly, what seemed like a comfortable upper-middle-class salary feels more like treading water in a sea of rising costs. Now, you might be thinking, well, just budget better or live in a cheaper city. And yes, those are valid solutions, but they aren't always realistic. Job markets, family obligations, career growth, and social ties all influence where you can live. Moving to a cheaper area might mean a pay cut, fewer opportunities, or starting over socially. Budgeting helps, but when essential costs are high, there isn't much room to maneuver. And this is why $70,000 feels like a trap for so many Americans. It's as enough to make you feel you should be doing okay, but never enough to truly feel secure or free. And it's not just perception. Studies show that a huge portion of Americans, even those earning above the median income, cannot cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing or selling something. This isn't poverty in the traditional sense, but it is financial vulnerability. And it's exactly what many $70,000 earners experience. You're not poor on paper, but you feel poor in reality. And this feeling is powerful. It shapes your choices, limits your opportunities, and can even affect your health and well-being. This is why, for so many people, the American dream feels like a moving target. Work hard, go to school, get a good job, and yet the salary that should feel comfortable often leaves you feeling trapped. $70K isn't poverty by official standards, but it can feel like poverty when the cost of living, debt, and life's unexpected challenges constantly chip away at your income. So, what does this mean for you? How do you navigate this financial reality without feeling defeated? How can you turn a salary that feels like barely scraping by into something that actually supports your goals, your family, and your peace of mind? In the next part of this video, we're going to break down specific strategies, mindset shifts, and hidden truths that can help you take control of them when $70,000 feels like it's never enough. You'll learn how to protect yourself from the trap of high costs, avoid the common mistakes most Americans make, and start seeing real progress in your finances without changing your salary overnight. Because here's the truth. The number on your paycheck doesn't define your financial healthier choices. Awareness and strategy do, and once you understand that, $70,000 doesn't have to feel like poverty anymore. So, now that we've laid out why $70,000 can feel like poverty, let's talk about how to regain control. Because understanding the problem is only the first step. The next step is taking action to protect your financial stability and start feeling like your money actually works for you. One of the most important things to realize is that it's not just about earning more. It's about spending smarter, protecting your income, and making your money stretch further than it seems possible. First, let's tackle housing, because for most people, rent or mortgage is the single largest monthly expense. If you're living in a high-cost city and feeling crushed by rent, there are some options that don't involve immediately packing up and moving across the country. Consider downsizing your apartment or house, finding a roommate, or even renegotiating your lease if the market allows. Many people overlook the possibility of moving to a slightly less trendy neighborhood or location a few miles outside the city center. This can save hundreds, sometimes even thousands, each month. And don't underestimate long-term planning. If buying a home is part of your goal, consider budgeting with a timeline in mind and focusing on building a solid down payment before committing to higher monthly costs. Next, we need to talk about tax efficiency. Taxes are unavoidable, but there are ways to legally reduce your burden. Healthcare costs are another area where small adjustments can have a big impact. If your job offers insurance, make sure you're optimizing your plan. Sometimes a slightly higher premium can save you thousands in deductibles and out-of-pocket costs if an emergency arises. If you're self-employed or without employer coverage, shop around. Plans vary drastically in price and benefits, and don't ignore preventative care. Catching health issues early can prevent catastrophic bills later. Now, let's talk student loans, because this is a major stressor for millions of Americans. If your payments feel impossible, explore options like refinancing for a lower interest rate, income-driven repayment plans, or even forgiveness programs if you qualify. The key here is proactive management. Don't let loans accumulate interest unchecked. Even small adjustments, like paying a little extra when possible, can save thousands over time and shorten the repayment period, which translates into real relief for your monthly budget. Food and groceries might seem trivial compared to rent or loans, but they add up fast. Here, the power is in planning, smart shopping, and minimizing waste. Meal prepping, buying in bulk, using discount apps, and cooking at home can save hundreds of dollars each month. It's not just about cutting costs, it's about creating control over your spending, so you're no longer reacting to inflated food prices or impulse buys. Small, consistent habits here can make a surprising difference in how far your $70,000 actually goes. Transportation is another place where small changes create huge relief. If owning a car is expensive, consider carpooling, public transit, or even switching to a smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicle. Sometimes, paying off an older car completely, rather than leasing a new one, creates more breathing room in your budget. And don't forget about insurance comparisons. Shopping for better rates annually can save a few $100s without changing your lifestyle. Emergency savings is arguably the most critical step. Start small if necessary. Even $50 a week can build into a meaningful buffer. This gives you freedom and peace of mind. One of the reasons $70,000 feels tight is because there's no safety net. Every small emergency feels catastrophic. Having even a modest emergency fund transforms the way you interact with money, turning reactive stress into proactive control. Now, here's where many people fail. Mindset. Financial stress, isn't only about numbers, it's about how you perceive your income and your choices. Feeling trapped on $70,000 is real, but it's often magnified by comparison and social pressures. Seeing neighbors drive newer cars, friends take expensive vacations, or co-workers flaunt lifestyles you can't afford can make your salary feel smaller than it is. The antidote: shift focus to what you can control. Celebrate small wins, and remind yourself that money is a tool, not a measure of self-worth. Another powerful strategy is side income. $70K might feel tight because of rising costs, but even a small, consistent second stream of income can dramatically change your financial picture. Freelancing, part-time work, or even turning hobbies into revenue streams provides extra breathing room without waiting for a promotion that may never come. Many people underestimate the power of small additional earnings, but over time they compound into real freedom and stability. And let's not overlook investing. You don't need to be rich to start investing. Even modest contributions to index funds, ETFs, or retirement accounts grow significantly over time due to compound interest. While $70,000 might feel insufficient for today, investing for the future ensures your money works for you, turning the pressure of living paycheck to paycheck into a sense of building something permanent. The earlier you start, the less stressful the financial journey becomes. Debt management is equally crucial. High-interest debt, like credit cards, can devour any extra income you earn. Focus on strategically paying down high-interest debt first, while keeping minimum payments on lower-interest obligations. This method, often called the avalanche strategy, ensures that every extra dollar you put toward debt actually decreases your long-term financial burden. Watching the balances drop over months creates not just financial relief, but psychological relief, which is just as important. And here is a truth that most people don't consider. Flexibility can save money and stress. If you can adjust your lifestyle, even slightly shifting where you live, how you commute, or your discretionary spending, you reclaim control over your finances. The $70,000 salary that feels like poverty isn't inherently broken. It's the mismatch between income, expenses, and lifestyle expectations. Closing that gap is about intentional choices and strategic planning, not sheer luck. Finally, let's talk about long-term goals. Feeling stuck on $70,000 often comes from a lack of direction. Without clear financial goals, whether it's buying a home, saving for retirement, or funding your children's education every month feels like treading water. Establishing concrete goals provides motivation and structure. Break them into achievable steps, track progress, and celebrate milestones. Suddenly, your salary doesn't just pay bills, it becomes a vehicle to build the life you want. In short, feeling poor on a $70,000 salary is a real phenomenon, but it's not hopeless. By managing housing, taxes, healthcare, debt, and lifestyle strategically, and combining that with mindset shifts, side income, and long-term planning, you can turn what feels like financial struggle into financial control. And here's the kicker. Once you start seeing results, even modest ones, your perception changes dramatically. $70K doesn't have to feel like poverty, it can feel like the start of real financial freedom. In the next block, we'll go even deeper. We'll explore specific numbers, real-world scenarios, and actionable tips that people actually use to turn their $70,000 salary into a life that feels comfortable, secure, and even prosperous. You'll see how tiny adjustments, compounded over months, can shift your financial reality from constant stress to genuine control. This isn't theory, it's real strategies that people use today to fight the rising costs of living and finally feel like their money is working for them, not the other way around. Now, let's bring it all together and get very practical. We've talked about why $70,000 can feel tight and how mindset, spending, and planning play a role. But let's translate that into real-world examples and actionable strategies that you can implement immediately. Because understanding the problem is one thing. Actually taking steps to feel financially secure is another, and this is where the transformation happens. Imagine someone earning $70,000 a year living in a city like Los Angeles. Rent for a one-bedroom apartment is $2,500 per month. That's $30,000 a year just for housing. Add $400 per month for utilities, $300 for internet and phone, $600 for groceries for one person, $500 for transportation, $400 for insurance, $300 for miscellaneous expenses, and suddenly, $70,000 feels incredibly tight. And if that person has student loans of $500 a month, that brings the total yearly expenses to nearly $55,000 before taxes, meaning there's very little left over for savings, emergencies, or leisure. So, what can be done? First, look at housing creatively. Another example is transportation. Swapping a gas-guzzling car for a used fuel-efficient vehicle or utilizing public transport could easily save $300–$400 a month. That's $3,600 $4,800 a year more than the average person would think. And this money can be redirected toward paying down high-interest credit cards, adding to emergency savings, or investing for the future. Debt repayment strategy is critical too. Using the avalanche method, paying off the highest interest debts first, while making minimum payments on others, can reduce total interest paid dramatically. Even if someone is only able to throw an extra $100, $200 a month toward debt, over time it speeds up repayment and reduces stress. Watching debts shrink isn't just financially freeing, it's mentally liberating. Emergency savings may feel impossible on $70,000, but even a modest plan works. For instance, setting aside $50 per week amounts to $2,600 a year. In 2 years, that's $5,200, enough to cover major car repairs, small medical bills, or an unexpected travel expense. This safety net transforms the psychological experience of living paycheck to paycheck into confidence and freedom. You no longer panic when bills arrive unexpectedly because you have a buffer. Next, let's explore investing in long-term planning. Side income is another game changer. Freelancing, tutoring, selling digital products, or even monetizing hobbies can add $500, $1,000 a month. That extra $6,000, $12,000 per year effectively bumps your $70,000 salary to $76,000 without waiting for a promotion or raise. And the beauty of side income is that it provides flexibility, skill growth, and sometimes even a pathway to a higher-paying career or entrepreneurial opportunities. Here is an example that resonates with many $70,000 earners. A single parent living in Chicago, paying $1,800 for rent, $400 for transportation, $400 for groceries, and $300 for utilities. After taxes, they might have $2,500 left each month. By meal prepping, cutting subscriptions, and using public transportation, they free up $500 per month. Investing that in a mix of emergency savings and low-risk investments, while simultaneously tackling student loans with the avalanche method, turns a stressful, tight budget into a manageable plan with real growth potential. Over a few years, what once felt like financial suffocation becomes control, confidence, and forward momentum. And don't underestimate psychological strategies. Creating a realistic budget, tracking every dollar, and celebrating small wins builds momentum. For example, paying off a single credit card or saving your first $1,000 emergency fund might not sound life-changing, but psychologically, it's huge. Every victory reinforces good habits, which compounds just like your investments. The $70,000 salary suddenly feels less like a trap and more like a foundation for growth. Mindset is equally important. Stop comparing your life to others on social media. The truth is, most people exaggerate their wealth online. Instead, focus on your own progress, stability, and goals. Ask yourself, what can I control today? Where can I make small adjustments? How can I prioritize the financial peace and security of my family over appearances or temporary pleasure? These questions shift your perspective from scarcity to strategy. And let's not ignore career strategy. While $70,000 may feel limiting now, investing in skill development, certifications, or networking can open doors to higher-paying opportunities. The key is positioning yourself for growth while managing your current finances wisely. Even a small raise of $5,000, $10,000, combined with all the strategies we've discussed, housing, optimization, debt management, side income, can feel transformative rather than incremental. Now, let's tie this back to the bigger picture. $70,000 may feel like poverty because costs are high. Debts are real, and unexpected expenses are constant. But with planning, mindset, and intentional action, it can be the starting point of a life that feels secure, even prosperous. Every strategic choice, housing, transportation, savings, investing, debt repayment, and side income, adds up. And the more control you take, the more empowered you feel, breaking free from the sense of financial helplessness that traps so many Americans. Finally, here's the mindset shift that changes everything. It's not the number that defines your financial reality, it's what you do with it. Two people earning $70,000 can have entirely different lives. One may feel crushed, stressed, and trapped. The other can feel stable, growing, and confident. The difference isn't magic, it's strategy, discipline, and awareness. This is the power you hold over your finances, no matter what the cost of living throws at you. So, as you think about your $70,000 salary or whatever number your paycheck shows, remember this: it's not about being rich overnight. It's about taking intentional steps, creating small wins, and building habits that compound over time. Because when you do that, even $70,000 in a high-cost area can stop feeling like poverty and start feeling like freedom, control, and potential. This is the truth that few people talk about: the reality of living on a good salary in a country where expenses are rising faster than wages, and the strategies that actually make a difference. And once you internalize it, once you start applying even a fraction of these steps, the stress diminishes, your confidence grows, and $70,000 doesn't just pay the bills, it becomes a stepping stone toward the life you've always wanted. So, if you're tired of feeling trapped by your salary, it's time to take action. Start today. Evaluate your expenses, tackle your debt, save consistently, invest wisely, and consider ways to increase income. The steps may seem small individually, but combined, they create massive, life-changing results. $70,000 doesn't have to feel like poverty, it can feel like the beginning of real financial empowerment.